The reservation was for 7. Connor Hayes arrived at 6:45, a habit his late wife used to mock gently. "The restaurant won't vanish if you're on time," she'd say, laughing. But here he was, early again, palms sweating like a teenager's. 4 years. 4 years since Rachel's car had skidded on black ice. 4 years of raising their daughter Zoe alone. 4 years of his sister Maya insisting he needed to move forward. Just one dinner Maya had begged last week. She's perfect. Works at a hospital, kind, no pressure. Do it for Zoe, do it for yourself. Connor had agreed only to stop Maya's relentless campaign. Now, sitting in Salvatier's Italian bistro, he regretted everything. The hostess led him to a corner table. Candlelight flickered against exposed brick walls. Romantic, intimate, suffocating. He loosened his tie, checked his watch. 6:52. At 7:03, movement caught his eye. A woman stood at the entrance, scanning tables. Dark auburn hair falling past her shoulders instead of the practical bun she always wore. Navy dress hugging curves he'd never noticed under her scrubs. Connor's stomach dropped. Natalie Chen, the pediatric nurse from Seattle Children's Hospital. The woman whose office was 3 doors from his. The woman who'd brought soup when Zoe had strep throat and he'd looked like death. The woman he saw every single day. Their eyes met. Shock registered on her face, followed by confusion, then dawning horror. She approached slowly, uncertainty in every step. "Connor, are you meeting someone here?" His mouth went dry. "Blind date, my sister set it up." He forced the words out. "You." Natalie's eyes widened. "Same. My friend Emma mentioned her brother needed someone. Single dad, doctor at Children's Hospital." She paused. "You're Maya's brother." The realization crashed over both of them like a wave. "You're my blind date," Connor said flatly. "And you're mine," Natalie laughed, high and nervous. "This is insane." Connor gestured to the empty chair. "You can leave. We'll pretend this never happened Monday morning." Natalie stood frozen, purse clutched tight. Her perfume reached him. Something floral he'd noticed before but never acknowledged. Something that made his chest tighten in ways he'd forbidden himself to feel. "Or," she said quietly, "I could stay if you want." Did he want? Connor studied her. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time in 18 months of working together. Natalie, who remembered Zoe's birthday. Natalie, who covered his shifts when parent-teacher conferences ran late. Natalie, whose laugh sometimes cut through his grief fog and reminded him what joy sounded like. "Stay," he heard himself say. "Please." Relief flickered across her face. She slid into the chair, set her purse down carefully. "I didn't picture our first date like this." "You pictured us dating." Color bloomed in her cheeks. "Maybe, once or twice, but I'd never cross that line. I know how complicated things are for you." The waiter appeared before Connor could respond. They ordered. Red wine for her, whiskey for him. When they were alone again, silence stretched between them like a chasm. "What did Maya tell you about me?" Connor finally asked. Natalie traced the rim of her water glass. "That you're devoted to your daughter, that you haven't dated since your wife passed, that you're brilliant and kind and stuck." She met his eyes. "She didn't mention your name or where you worked." Strategic omission. "Very," Natalie smiled slightly. "Are you disappointed it's me?" "Why would I be?" "Because I'm the boring colleague you see every day. Because I know you drink 3 coffees before noon and hate electronic health records. Because there's no mystery left." Connor shook his head. "That's not disappointment, Natalie. That's relief." Her breath caught. Relief. "I was terrified tonight, meeting a stranger, making small talk, pretending I'm not broken." He leaned forward. "But you already know the broken parts, and you're still here." Emotion flickered in her dark eyes. "You're not broken, Connor, you're healing. There's a difference." The drinks arrived. Connor took a long sip, letting the whiskey burn away some of his anxiety. "Zoe asked if I was going on a playdate. I said it was grown-up dinner with a friend. She told me to wear my SpongeBob tie because friends like SpongeBob." Natalie laughed, genuine and bright. "I absolutely would have appreciated SpongeBob." "Next time," Connor said, then froze. If there is a next time. I'd like that, her smile widened. Very much. Their appetizers came. Bruschetta for her, calamari for him. As they ate, conversation flowed easier. Connor found himself sharing things he'd never mentioned at work. How Zoe asked about her mother every Tuesday, Rachel's favorite day. How he'd kept Rachel's clothes in the closet for 2 years before finally donating them. How some nights he still reached for the empty side of the bed. How do you do it? Natalie asked softly. Keep going when the pain is so fresh. Connor set down his fork. One breath at a time. Some days I'm just surviving until bedtime, but Zoe needs me present, so I try to be. You're doing an incredible job. Am I? She asked last month if I'd stop being sad soon. 8 years old and she's worried about me. Natalie reached across the table, stopping just short of touching his hand. She's lucky to have a father who feels deeply, who shows her that grief is natural, not shameful. Connor looked at her hand, inches from his. Small fingers, calloused from washing, short nails painted pale pink. He wanted to close the distance. Didn't dare. Tell me about you, he said instead. Why Seattle? You grew up in Portland, right? Good memory. Natalie withdrew her hand, sipped her wine. I came here 5 years ago after ending an engagement. He wanted me to give up nursing. Said doctors' wives don't work. Doctors' wives? He was in surgical residency, very traditional views. Bitterness edged her voice. I chose my career, started over completely. New city, new hospital, new life. That's brave. Or stupid. Some days I wasn't sure which. She smiled sadly. But I couldn't be who he wanted, and I couldn't marry someone who didn't respect what I do. Connor understood that. Rachel had championed his career, celebrated his successes, commiserated over his failures. True partnership. He'd thought he'd never find that again. Dinner arrived. Chicken marsala for him, seafood linguine for her. They talked through the meal. Books they loved, places they wanted to visit, childhood memories that still stung. Connor learned Natalie had a younger brother with autism, which sparked her passion for pediatric care. She learned Connor had been pre-med before switching to pediatrics, drawn to helping kids navigate their toughest moments. We're more similar than I realized, Natalie observed, twirling pasta on her fork. Maybe that's why Maya thought we'd work. Smart woman, your sister. Meddling woman, Connor corrected but smiled. They shared tiramisu, trading bites and stories. By the time the check came, Connor felt lighter than he had in months. Maybe years. Being with Natalie didn't require pretense. She'd seen him exhausted after double shifts. She knew he forgot lunch when stressed. She understood the weight of watching children suffer. Outside, rain misted down, turning the streetlights into halos. Connor walked Natalie to her car, hyper-aware of the space between them. I had a really wonderful time, Natalie said, turning to face him. Droplets caught in her hair like diamonds. So did I. Connor shoved his hands in his pockets to keep from reaching for her. Would Monday be unbearably awkward if I asked to see you again? Outside work. Not awkward at all, her eyes shone. I was hoping you'd ask. There was a moment, electric, fragile. Connor thought about kissing her. Instead, he stepped back, respecting what was building between them. I should get home. Maya's with Zoe. Of course. See you Monday. Connor drove home in a daze. The evening had derailed every expectation. He'd gone from dread to shock to something terrifyingly close to hope. But pulling into his driveway, doubt crept in. What was he doing? Natalie was his colleague. Dadding her would complicate everything. And Zoe. How would his daughter react to her father caring about someone who wasn't her mother? Maya was on the couch, smug smile plastered on her face. How'd it go? You knew. Connor hung up his jacket. You knew it was Natalie. Guilty. Maya's smile widened. Emma mentioned setting up her friend with a single dad doctor. When she described Natalie's hospital, I connected the dots. Mad. Connor sank into the recliner. I should be, but I'm not. So it went well. Really well. Connor rubbed his face. Which terrifies me. We work together, Maya, and there's Zoe. Zoe adores Natalie. Remember the hospital holiday party? She talked about the pretty nurse who taught her origami for days. Connor hadn't made that connection. But yes, Zoe had been enchanted by Natalie, who'd spent half an hour folding paper stars with her. "It's been 4 years," Maya said gently. "Rachel would want you happy." Connor closed his eyes. Rachel, vibrant, loving Rachel. She'd want him to live, not just exist. But guilt still clawed at him. Moving forward felt like betrayal. "One step at a time," he finally said. "That's all I can promise." After Maya left, Connor checked on Zoe. Fast asleep, teddy bear tucked under her chin. He brushed hair from her forehead, heart swelling with fierce love. "What do you think, sweetheart?" he whispered. "Should Daddy try being brave?" Monday morning arrived with butterflies rioting in Connor's stomach. He'd spent Sunday distracted, half listening to Zoe's chatter about her weekend with Maya, mind circling back to Natalie. Would things be weird now? Would colleagues notice? He arrived early, found coffee on his desk. Black, 2 sugars, a sticky note attached. "Ready for rounds N." Connor smiled despite himself. When Natalie appeared at his door at 9, clipboard in hand, her professional demeanor was flawless. Only the slight curve of her lips suggested anything had changed. "Morning, Dr. Hayes. Ready to review patient charts?" "Absolutely, Nurse Chen. Come in." They managed rounds with remarkable composure. Connor noticed things he'd overlooked before. How Natalie tucked hair behind her ear when concentrating. How her eyes lit up solving problems. The vanilla scent of her lotion when she leaned close to point out something on a chart. As she gathered her clipboard to leave, Connor cleared his throat. "Natalie, would you and maybe want to join Zoe and me for dinner Friday? Nothing fancy. Pizza and a movie at my house. Zoe wants to see that new superhero film." Professional facade softened. "I'd love that. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself. Though Zoe will definitely want to show you her rock collection." "A rock collection. I'm honored." The week crawled by. Stolen glances in hallways. Brief conversations in the break room. By Friday, Connor found himself cleaning his already clean house while Zoe bounced with excitement. "Is Miss Natalie staying overnight?" Zoe asked, arranging couch cushions. Connor nearly dropped the pizza box. "No, sweetie, just dinner and a movie." "Like a playdate?" "Something like that." When Natalie arrived, bringing homemade cookies despite Connor's protests, Zoe immediately took charge. "You sit next to Daddy. I'll sit on this side so you don't get scared during the movie." "Very thoughtful," Natalie said seriously. "I do startle easily." Connor watched them interact, relief and wonder mixing in his chest. Zoe seemed completely comfortable with Natalie in their home. The movie passed pleasantly. Zoe gradually migrated to the floor with pillows, leaving Connor and Natalie sitting closer than planned. When Zoe dozed off halfway through, Connor carried her to bed despite drowsy protests. Returning to the living room, he found Natalie washing dishes, sleeves rolled up. "You don't have to do that." "I don't mind," she smiled. "It's nice being in a family home. My apartment's pretty quiet." "Good quiet or lonely quiet?" "Both, depending on the day." Natalie rinsed a plate. "I like independence, but sometimes the silence gets heavy." Connor nodded, understanding completely. "That's why I leave the TV on, just for voices." They finished dishes together. When Natalie gathered her purse to leave, Connor found himself reluctant to end the evening. "Thank you for coming. Zoe had a great time." "So did I," Natalie's voice softened. "Very much." The moment stretched. Connor stepped forward, heart pounding. Gently, he pressed his lips to her cheek. Brief, modest, but momentous. The first intentionally affectionate touch he'd initiated with a woman since Rachel. Understanding shone in Natalie's eyes when he pulled back. "Good night, Connor." "See you Monday." Weeks became months. Natalie became a fixture in their lives. Friday movie nights, Saturday park visits, occasional dinner dates when Maya watched Zoe. At work, they maintained professionalism, though colleagues had started exchanging knowing looks. As the anniversary of Rachel's death approached, Connor felt the familiar dread settling in. He and Zoe always visited the cemetery together, leaving flowers, sharing memories. A private ritual of grief. The night before, Natalie called. "I'm thinking about you. If you need anything tomorrow, or if you'd rather cancel our plans this weekend, I understand." Connor was silent, throat tight. "Would you want to come with us? Not to the cemetery, that's just for Zoe and me, but after we usually get ice cream and go to Lincoln Park. Rachel loved the gardens there." The invitation surprised them both. Including Natalie in their ritual felt significant. "Right." "Are you sure?" Natalie asked gently. "Yes, but I should ask Zoe first." Zoe's response was immediate. "Mom would like Miss Natalie. She's nice and she makes you smile, Daddy." The next day, after the cemetery, Connor and Zoe met Natalie at the ice cream shop near Lincoln Park. Connor felt emotionally wrung out, but somehow lighter than previous years. As they walked through the gardens, Zoe ran ahead to explore the fountain, leaving Connor and Natalie on a path bordered with roses. "Thank you for today," Connor said quietly, "for understanding." Natalie slipped her hand into his, a gesture that had become familiar. "Rachel will always be part of your lives. I would never want to change that." Connor squeezed her hand, words failing. They walked until reaching a bench overlooking the pond. Connor sat, drawing Natalie beside him. "I've been thinking about moving forward," he said. "What that means, for years I thought it meant leaving Rachel behind, but I'm starting to understand that's not it at all." Natalie waited, giving him space. "Moving forward means carrying her with me but not letting grief anchor me in place." Connor turned to face her. "And I think I'm ready for another step." "What kind of step?" "I'd like to call you my girlfriend, if you'd want that too." Natalie's smile could have lit the city. "I would like that very much." When Zoe returned, she found them sitting closer, fingers entwined. With a child's easy acceptance, she squeezed between them, launching into excited chatter about the fountain. Connor met Natalie's eyes over Zoe's head. This new configuration felt right in ways he hadn't thought possible. That night, standing before Rachel's photograph on his nightstand, Connor whispered, "I think you'd like her. She's patient with Zoe. She makes terrible puns you would have hated. She doesn't try to replace you." He touched the frame gently. "I'll always love you, but I think I'm falling in love with her too. I needed you to know." Their relationship deepened gradually, always with Zoe's feelings prioritized. Natalie stayed for dinner more often, helped with homework, cheered at soccer games. She and Connor developed inside jokes, favorite restaurants, comfortable rhythms. 8 months in, they faced their first real challenge. Natalie was offered a position in the neonatal ICU, better pay and hours, but occasional night shifts. The prospect of her being less available stirred anxiety in both Connor and Zoe. "I don't want you to go away," Zoe said tearfully. "What if you don't come back? Mom went away and never came back." The statement gutted Connor. He hadn't realized Zoe equated any departure with permanent loss. Natalie knelt before Zoe, eyes glistening. "I will always come back. Always. I'm not going far and not for long, I promise." Later, after Zoe was reassured and in bed, Connor and Natalie sat on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket against the autumn chill. "I didn't know she worried about that," Connor said roughly. "We couldn't have known, but now we do and we'll help her through it." Natalie leaned against him. "The position is important to me, but so are you both." "I'm proud of you," Connor said. "Take the job, we'll figure out the rest." Natalie hesitated. "I was thinking, what if I moved closer? Not in with you," she added quickly, "but nearby, so the night shifts wouldn't mean being so far away." Connor considered it. Significant commitment. But the thought of her living nearby, of more impromptu dinners and lazy mornings, felt right. "I'd like that very much." Natalie's new apartment was a 10-minute walk away. Zoe helped decorate, adding personal touches. A painted flower pot, a framed drawing of the three of them, shells from their first beach trip. As Natalie settled in, Connor found himself thinking seriously about their future. The walls around his heart hadn't just been breached. They'd been carefully, lovingly dismantled by a woman who understood healing wasn't a destination but a journey. On their 1-year anniversary, Connor took Natalie back to Salvator's. Same corner table, now laden with memories. "Did you imagine that first night we'd end up here?" Connor asked, raising his glass. Natalie's eyes sparkled in candlelight. "I hoped, but I didn't dare expect it." "I was terrified then." Connor took her hand. "Now I'm still scared sometimes, but not of loving you, of how much I love you, how important you've become to us." "You're important to me too, both of you, more than I can say." After dinner, they walked along the waterfront, city lights reflecting on Puget Sound. Connor had planned this moment carefully, consulted with Zoe, who'd enthusiastically approved. "Natalie," he said, stopping at a scenic overlook, "this past year has been transformative. You've shown me it's possible to honor the past while embracing the future. You've loved Zoe with such generosity. You've been patient with my hesitations." Natalie watched him, eyes widening as he withdrew a small velvet box from his pocket. "I'm not asking you to replace anyone," Connor continued, voice steady despite his racing heart. "I'm asking you to help us build something new, something that includes what came before but isn't limited by it." He opened the box, a simple, elegant ring, emerald surrounded by small diamonds. "Will you marry me?" Natalie's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. For a moment, she couldn't speak. "Yes," she finally managed, voice breaking. "Yes, Connor, I would be honored." As he slipped the ring on her finger, Connor felt profound peace. This wasn't betrayal, it was growth. "Zoe helped pick the ring," he admitted. "She said green was better than clear because it matches your scrubs and because it's different." Natalie laughed through tears. "She's wise beyond her years." "She's waiting up for us. Maya's with her. They probably have a celebration ready." They arrived home to find Zoe and Maya had indeed prepared a party. Homemade banner reading, "Congratulations, Connor and Natalie," and cupcakes with green frosting. Zoe launched herself at Natalie, wrapping arms around her. "Did you say yes? Please say yes." "I absolutely said yes." Natalie knelt, showing the ring. "It's perfect." Zoe's face was solemn with the moment's importance. "Now you'll be my mom too, not instead of my first mom," she added quickly, looking at Connor. "But as well as, Daddy said I could have 2 moms, one in heaven and one here." Natalie's eyes filled again as she pulled Zoe into a tight hug. "I would be so proud to be your second mom, so very proud." Watching them embrace, Connor felt rightness settle over him. Their path wouldn't always be smooth. Blending families never was, but they'd navigate it together with love and patience. Later, after Zoe was finally in bed and Maya had left, Connor and Natalie stood in the kitchen washing dishes side by side, as they had so many times. "Are you happy?" Natalie asked, passing him a plate. Connor considered the question thoroughly. "I am deeply happy, not because everything's perfect, but because I found a way to hold both joy and grief in the same heart. Because of you." Natalie set down the dishcloth, turned to face him fully. "I love you, Connor Hayes, your strength and vulnerability, your terrible jokes and your perfectionism. I love watching you with Zoe. I love who I am with you both." Connor pulled her close, still amazed at how perfectly she fit. "I love you too. Thank you for staying at my table that night, even when you realized I was your awkward coworker." "Best wrong table I ever took," Natalie murmured. Their wedding 6 months later was intimate. Close friends and family in Lincoln Park, where they'd cemented their bond. Zoe served as both flower girl and ring bearer, taking her roles seriously. During the ceremony, they included a moment for Rachel, lighting a candle in her honor. "Love is not diminished when shared," the officiant said. "It is multiplied." As Connor recited his vows, looking into Natalie's eyes, he felt lightness he'd thought lost forever. Not because he'd forgotten, but because he'd found courage to carry his past forward into a new beginning. The path from grief to joy is rarely straight. It winds through valleys and climbs steep inclines. But sometimes, if we're brave enough to keep walking, it leads to unexpected destinations. to wrong tables that turn out exactly right, to colleagues who become companions, to second chances that honor first loves. As Connor and Natalie shared their first dance, Zoe twirling around them, he realized life's most beautiful moments often come disguised as coincidences or mistakes or blind dates arranged by meddling sisters. All we have to do is be brave enough to recognize them when they arrive.